Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video, and today we're talking about Avengers Age of Ultron. There's a lot to talk about here, so let's get into this. If I had to describe this movie in one sentence, I'd say that it's unutilized potential. There's a lot of things in this movie that I considered interesting, but then they never really followed through into something bigger. They kind of just stayed in that same realm, or it either turned into something bad. There was never really anything in this movie that was just downright bad, maybe except for the Black Widow and Bruce Banner romance here, because this never really built up. It comes out of nowhere, and then it kind of plays a vital role at the end when Hulk decides to leave, but I really don't care for it that much. There's not a lot of chemistry there, and they don't pull it off as a performance, and it really just makes me want to throw up sometimes. It's kind of cringy.
He has a temper. Deep down, he's all fluff.
But there's nothing really else in this movie that bothers me this much or is just downright bad. It's more like good ideas with bad execution. The first thing that comes to mind when I bring this up is Quicksilver. He's first introduced in this film alongside Wanda, but he gets killed off in his first appearance. It doesn't really make sense to me. I feel like he kind of dies just to say, oh, people do die in the Marvel movies, but this death didn't really do anything for me because we didn't have time to really grip onto him. If Hawkeye would have died, that would have hit more. I feel like maybe he should have before this progressed more, but then again, he does have a family that is now introduced. It's just really frustrating to see such a interesting character that's barely getting fleshed out get killed off so early. And not to mention that scene really bothers me because at the same time Black Widow was alive. This makes no sense. Take a look. How the fuck does she survive that? Quicksilver is insanely fast. She's just a normal human. And the bullets aren't even coming from Hulk's side. They're coming from behind her. Why was she not killed? I don't fucking know. How does she end up perfectly fine but Quicksilver ends up like this?
You didn't see that coming.
That's some insane goddamn plot armor. No, that's a goddamn plot hole. A good thing I do want to say about this movie is that it is very charming at times. Take for example this party scene right here where they all try to lift Thor's hammer, and it's all in good fun and it's very charming, but they do bring this into a good twist later on.
Are you even pulling?
But we need to go.
You can't even tell me that moment's not charming. That shit is good. This movie has a lot of memorable moments. But of course, this movie also has multiple corny and cringy jokes. Like the language one? What? No. I'm very split down the middle with the main cast of this movie because I think half of them did good and half of them did bad. I think Iron Man and Cap did great. They were both amazing here, especially Iron Man with his conflict after the first Avengers. I love how they dive into that and don't just let it go. It really forms him as a character. I think Cap was great in the conflict he brought with not wanting to bring Vision alive. He had his doubts and he had reasons to have them. They were good. I mean, we saw what happened with Ultron. Why would we want to bring another one into the mix? I like Hawkeye here because he's seen more as a mentor in this film, which is really good for his role because he doesn't have any insane superpowers. I mean, he gets hit in the beginning of the movie and then we find out he has a family. He's seen more vulnerable here, but he's still a strong-witted guy, and the speech he gave Wanda was pretty darn good. I like the twins here, Quicksilver and Wanda. They didn't take up a whole bunch of screen time, which I liked, but they still played important roles with their few minutes that they did have on screen time, and they were interesting enough to keep me intrigued to see what Marvel would do with them in the future. And then we have the bad. Hulk and Black Widow, as you know, I'm not a fan of their whole relationship thing, and that's really all they have going for them here, except maybe if you say when Hulk was destroying everything and he had to fight Iron Man, but we'll get into that in a bit. Black Widow and Hulk really underused in this movie, especially Hulk going from the most interesting character in the Avengers to one of the least interesting in this film. I wonder why Thor was so underutilized here. Maybe it's because he's kind of overpowered. How would we really show his weaknesses? They have him go on a whole other side quest, which was kind of cool, I guess, but it was boring. But we saw the Infinity Stone, so I guess that's a plus. The foreshadowing was kind of nice, but there's nothing really else to Thor. He's really underutilized in this film, which is what's the problem with him. But a good thing is that he was the one that brought Vision to life. That brings me into my next thing. Let's talk about Vision. Vision is such an interesting character in this film. I mean, he brings so much good conflict. We have one side that wants to utilize Vision and have him kind of as a protector and help relieve the burden of saving the world. And on the other side, we have people who do not trust this technology and would rather take that burden onto themselves.
Isn't that the mission? Isn't that the why we fight? So we can end the fight, so we get to go home? Every time someone tries to win a war before it starts, innocent people die.
Conflict within the heroes is kind of bittersweet with me because it's kind of dumb in the beginning. I mean, they're just having a dick measuring contest while chopping some wood. I mean, if they both sat down and talked to each other for just a second, they would see that both of their sides are actually pretty understandable. Cap wants to be included with the decisions, which he rightfully should, and Iron Man rightfully wants to find a way to save people. It's not one-sided, which doesn't make it a good conflict. If both sides can get what they want, what is the problem? But the conflict does get good when it gets one-sided, when they think about bringing Vision to life. You are either on the side that does want him brought to life or the side that does not. There is no either or, there is no middle ground. It's either Vision is going to be brought to life or is not. The good part about this conflict is that it's such a risk and no one really knows what is gonna happen. It is all just one big risk. Vision could turn out to be exactly like Ultron, but even worse because he's damn near indestructible, or he could be the savior of this story. That's what makes Vision so intriguing in this film. There's so much to learn about him that is not discussed in this film that we will have to come back in other films and figure out who Vision really is and how he will react. Another thing I want to talk about is how dumb things happen in this film. Like, I don't think Tony Stark's stuff would be that easy to go through. I would think he would have some sort of security. I mean, he's Tony fucking Stark. He knows about this type of stuff. But hey, maybe I'm just underestimating Ultron. Another thing is, how did Hulkbuster take care of Hulk? I can't fathom that. Hulk is like unbelievably strong. He's supposed to be unbelievably strong. There is no amount of Iron Man armor that should be able to do that. Now let's get into the final thing I wanted to talk about in this film. Ultron. He's such wasted potential. He had potential to be a great villain. He had potential to be on Thanos' level of great villain. But he's not. He turns out to be a crybaby whiny bitch.
Look at me. Do I look like Iron Man? Stark is... I don't understand. Don't compare me with Stark.
In my opinion, Ultron had too much emotion. He should have had no emotion whatsoever. He should have had no emotional attachment to Tony Stark or anyone else. He should have been cold and calculated like a computer. His philosophy should have been, if the numbers justify the means, then it is justifiable itself. So for example, if you kill 5 people to send 10 lives, does that make it justifiable? I mean, on paper, then maybe it should, but there's more context to it always. There's emotion, there is empathy, right? But in my opinion, Ultron should have felt none of this, and in his brain, that is the primary way to save lives. That would have made more sense than what they did go through, as he did have emotions and he wanted to get rid of Tony Stark because of what exactly? I was kind of scratching my head trying to figure out why he hated them so much. I can get why he would dislike them, but not want to kill them and destroy an entire city. I know he said that the human race needs to be kind of revamped, but it's not exactly explored as deep as I would like it to be. I want to know what were his core motivations. I mean, he did have emotion, so it couldn't have been that he was cold-hearted and this was the way to save humanity, because he showed emotion multiple times throughout the film. Ultron isn't the worst part of this movie, not by a long shot, but he is definitely the most frustrating because I see the potential of a great villain. That's pretty much all I had to say for the movie, so let's give this thing a score. I'm gonna have to give Avengers Age of Ultron a score of 6 out of 10. It's lukewarm, it's somewhere right in the middle, but more positive. I like the movie. It's nothing mind-boggling, but it's a lot of fun. At the end of the day, it's an Avengers film, so of course it's gonna be fun. But hey, let me know what you thought about the movie down below, and I'll catch y'all in the next one. Late.